What's up, bitches? Holla at your boy. So as everybody knows, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing with these live streams. um, ooh, there I am. I heard myself in my ears. I have one person watching, 26 people watching. Gimme. Come on, more. Where y'all at? Kyle looking like a snack. Wrong. Fake news. 110 people watching. Can we get to 1,000 in the middle of the day? We about to find out, bitch. Okay, so let's try to figure out how did I do this last time? I think the super chats just pop up, right? I mean, so I'm going to take some super chats, obviously, in a second, if I can figure out what the fuck I'm doing again. So somebody told me after the fact last time that apparently the $2 super chats don't pop up in like the super chat area where you can read the super chats. So like you got to kind of keep your eye out for the $2 super chats. So apparently I missed some questions last time. I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing, so bear with me. I apologize if I missed people's questions last time, and I apologize in advance if I miss any questions this time. But before we get into the super chat stuff, and as I'm talking to you, I will continue to click through to try to see what the dealio is with the super chats. I don't remember what I clicked last time, but I do have a couple things I want to talk about. Apart from that, apart from answering all y'all questions. So, somebody said Kyle DP is dead. Okay, let me touch on that for a little bit first. Boom shakalaka. Have my money. I will take that $5, dishonest Abe. Thank you. Drunken Peasants. Yeah, Drunken Peasants is gone. It went under. It went under. That makes it sound like it went bankrupt or something. It didn't go bankrupt. But Drunken Peasants is TJ Kirk's podcast. Apparently he's starting a new one soon, though, which I look forward to checking out. I like Drunken Peasants. I went on Drunken Peasants probably 3 or 4 times. Of course, we had the debate on Drunken Peasants against Razor Fist, who got razor fisted. But all my appearances on Drunken Peasants I liked. I was a fan of the show. But you know, the first thought I had when TJ announced that that's gone is like, wow, we take things for granted. You know what I mean? Like we take things for granted. Like when it's happening, you just think like, what do you mean this is just going to keep happening? I don't understand why. Like it's something that exists and it's not going to stop existing. But then it stops existing and you're like, oh shit. When that was happening, maybe I could have, I don't know, cherished it a little more. And I think that might be something with human nature. That's just how human nature is. You just start taking shit for granted. So it's a shame, but I'm sure TJ his new podcast, I'm sure will be good. I don't know all the details of the story, but there may have been issues behind the scenes, as happens with anything where human beings are involved and there's multiple different viewpoints and a dispersion of responsibilities. But yeah, I'm sure TJ will have a good new podcast and we will all miss DP. So RIP DP. By the way, how weird is this? The first video that pops up on my thing is Kyle debates conservative YouTuber Razor Fist on Drunken Peasants. Isn't that weird? Like I'm talking about, I mentioned that. We're talking about Drunken Peasants, and then that's the first recommended video. Wow, this shit is getting kind of creepy. Okay, so while I still don't know what the fuck is going on with the super chats, and I probably won't be able to figure it out this time because I'm a dumbass. Oh, there we go. Live control room had popped up then now. There we go. This is where I was last time. So maybe I'll get a good sense over here. If I happen to get some super chat. But so here's what I wanted to talk about apart from answering your lovely people's questions. Where's my little... I made a little tiny list here. Oh, fuck you. I clicked on the wrong thing. Here it is. Okay, so I was going to tell this story on air, but I didn't have time. Holiday conversations with the family. Listen, I try, man. People get the wrong impression of me from what I do. Of like, yeah, I bet Kyle's the one that sits around at Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner or whatever, and he's the one that brings up politics. No, bitch. I don't bring it up at all. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. For a variety of reasons, but I won't really get into the reasons, but oftentimes it's brought up to me. Family members will start talking to me about it. And then I can't help myself because it's like, look, I'm happy you're not talking about it, but if you bring up something and it's just like ridiculous, then what am I going to do? Sometimes I just nod to take it and I nod along. Oh yeah, sure, whatever. I'm sure you're right. Yeah, Obama's birth certificate, whatever. But sometimes I can't help myself. So the conversation last time, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it doesn't fit in that regular category of like either just totally dismiss it or nod along or zone out. A family member had brought up in the context of a conversation about taxes a few points that should be rebutted. So first of all, there's this theory that he has, which is just totally made up, that, yeah, it's the Democrats are the reason why the taxes aren't permanent on people making $75,000 a year or less. What? No. So Republicans have a majority fucking everywhere, and they use reconciliation to get it through the Senate. So they just needed 51 votes to get it through the Senate. So in the House, it's a ridiculous lead that they have. So they could have put whatever the fuck they wanted in the bill. They didn't put permanent tax cuts for people making $75,000 a year or less because they don't want to put it in there. They don't agree with that. And that should be obvious, but no, we came up with this cockamamie theory of like, it's because the Democrats, you know, they're the ones who wanted to put the sunset provision on that. No, the Democrats wanted neither part of the bill, the tax cuts for the corporations and the rich, because none of the Democrats voted for it, and the tax cuts for the middle class in the way that they did it. But again, there's a sunset provision on it. After 10 years, that goes away. And if anything, that should be permanent, and there should be temporary cuts for rich and corporations. Well, there really should be none, but it's a Republican bill, so I get it that they're going to put it in there. But point is, a family member just made it up. Like, oh, yeah, no, it's because of the Democrats that the $75,000 a year or less, that those tax cuts aren't permanent. And it's like, how do you take yourself seriously when you just come up with these theories that are based on absolutely nothing? Like, oh, yeah, this is how I'm going to rationalize it, that the Republicans are the party of regular people. Is that, look, they gave a tax cut to middle class people, but, oh, there's a sunset provision, but the ones for the rich are permanent. But so I can't blame the Republicans for doing what they did. So I'm just going to say it's because of the Democrats that they didn't make those tax cuts permanent. So that just got under my skin because it's like, it's so delusional. It's like he's trying so hard to convince himself. Like, no, this is what's going on. The Republicans are looking out for regular people. Then, as the conversation moved along, he let me know what he really thinks about taxes. And he says, oh, it should just be a flat tax of 20%, flat income tax rate of 20%. So this is one of those things where I feel like at face value, people might look at it and go, yeah, that's reasonable. Why not a flat tax of 20%? I mean, it's simple. It's straightforward. It's a tax rate that people, by and large, can handle. So why not just a flat tax of 20% across the board, and then we're done? And, you know, my response to him, and this is why I wanted to discuss this, so you guys know what to say if somebody brings this up to you, is a 20% flat tax. What that ends up being is a gigantic tax cut on the rich and a gigantic tax increase on the poor. So we already have historic levels of income inequality. And this is his solution. Like, yeah, just do a flat tax 20%, but that'll make income inequality even worse. Because I got news for you. If somebody makes $25,000 a year, they can't afford to pay 20% of their money in taxes. But if somebody makes $8 million a year, Not only can they afford to pay 20% taxes, they should be paying a much higher tax rate than that. So this is one of those things where it kind of sounds good in theory, like, oh, 20% flat tax. So simple. But in reality, it's a horrendous idea because we have record income inequality right now. It would exacerbate it. It would make it much worse. And it's a giant tax increase on the poor and a giant tax decrease on the rich. And so I brought that up to him, and his response was, okay, but then the first $10,000 is tax-free. As if that like ameliorates the whole thing, and now all of a sudden he's making a good point. No, because if somebody makes $11,000 a year, they can't afford to pay 20% of their money to the government. They just can't. They just can't. So that's not just. That's not a good system. Because again, you'll have Bill Gates paying 20% in taxes, and you'll have this person making 11 grand paying 20% taxes. They can't afford to pay it. Bill Gates can afford to pay that and much, much more and still be mega rich if he does that. So that was a little bit of an infuriating conversation. And I just want everybody to realize there are some ideas that sound good at face value. But then when you think about it, you realize it's actually a terrible idea. Honestly, it's almost like communism. It sounds great, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. But then when you implement it, it's actually terrible. So, and I know there are people who listen to me who actually consider themselves Marxists, and they would say I'm being flippant and I'm not, arguing against a steel man argument. They would say I'm straw manning them and arguing against that. Listen, no matter how intellectual you try to make it sound, ultimately, I think it doesn't work. But in theory, on paper, you look at it and you go, oh, that might work and that might make perfect sense. And I feel very similar with, like extreme libertarians and people who are semi-libertarian, and they would say, yeah, flat tax, why not? Well, here's why not. Giant tax decrease for the rich who don't need it. Giant tax increase on the poor who do need their money, do need to be able to keep more of their money. So not a good idea, flat tax. Not a good idea at all, even though at face value, some people might like it. Now, the next thing that really annoyed me was we got into, somehow Jeff Bezos came up, the Amazon guy, who's now worth like $100 billion. And I said to him, I think it was in the context of the flat tax argument. I said, listen, nobody should have $100 billion. Nobody should have $100 billion. That's too much wealth. That's too much power. And just by virtue of the fact that he has that money, he is a threat to any form of government. I mean, that's a threat to democracy, period. And his response was like, well, but he earned that money. And I'm here to tell you, no, he didn't. Nobody earned $100 billion. That doesn't mean anything. So you could say, in a market sense, he accumulated $100 billion, but your market value is not equal to your human value. So we pay people in accordance with their market value, which means that you have Jeff Bezos with $100 billion, but you also have 30 million people in this country without health care. You have half the country making $30,000 a year or less. I know people who worked 3 jobs, literally sun up to sundown, working like crazy, busting their ass, some of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and they were in poverty. So this idea of like, yeah, but Jeff Bezos just worked really hard, so I don't know, you can't, what are you going to take his money away from him? No, that's the point, is this isn't a meritocracy. So I'm not taking his money away from him, because the underlying assumption there is that it's his to be taken away. But no, if you accumulate $100 billion, it's not just that you worked harder than other people. It's that your market value, the accumulation of wealth with your market value, perhaps that's not the way the system should be created, where your market value is your actual material well-being value. So $100 billion, you literally can't. I mean, that would be, this is such a dumb way to explain it, but nonetheless, here I go. That'd be like he lives to 100 years old and spends $1 billion a year. Like, that's fucking crazy. That's just absolutely, utterly ridiculous. And again, at the same time that's happening, we have people who can't afford to keep the fucking lights on. People who are getting kicked out of their house, who work, so it's just the premise is flawed when they go, yeah, but that's his money. You can't, what do you mean that's his money? listen, right now, I think it's either 6 people or 8 people. I think it's 6 people. The 6 richest people in the world have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the world. So 6 people, more than 3.5 billion people. They didn't just work harder. They're products of a system where there's rigging, there's corruption, there's tremendous wealth passed down from generation to generation. This isn't a meritocracy, period. It's not a meritocracy. If you think it's a meritocracy, you're hilariously wrong. I mean, think about it in the context of a pizza pie. So you have a pizza that can feed everybody in the world. 6 people walk in and take more than half the pizza and leave what remains for, over 6.5 billion people. That's not, they didn't just work harder. And if you think that's the case, you're just factually wrong. Some of the hardest people I've ever seen, hardest workers I've ever seen, they lived in poverty. So the problem is with the system. The problem is that there's an assumption that we live in a meritocracy. We do not live in a meritocracy. So you have to craft a system that makes sense. You have to craft a system that doesn't give people material well-being solely based on their market value. So anyway, that was my response to that. I was going to get into some other stuff here, but I'm going to check in on the super chats real quick, skis. Okay, I'm seeing the money. I'm not seeing the questions. Wrong. So can somebody send me a question so I see if it pops up? A super chat question so I can see if it pops up. I see the $20. Yeah, Eric S gave $20. Thanks, Eric. But I don't see questions. I guess he didn't ask a question. Kulinski Kirk 2020. Oh, it's funny. I love pizza. Sup, Kyle? Sup, Jacob? How you doing, man? So can somebody send me a question here real quick with a super chat so I see if everything's working all hunky-dory? I think it just might be one of those situations where I'm not getting a lot of super chats today. How many? 1,378 people. I got to say, man, not bad for the middle of the day. Not bad for the middle of the day. Oh, Carl. Okay, so Carl sent a question here. Let's see. In 1992, Clinton's DLC took over DNC and formalized corporate funding. Any hope fixing this in 2018? Could a progressive POTUS easily force DNC reform? That's a good question. I think we have to force DNC reform. So they had the reform committee, and now it goes to one person, it goes to another committee, and then it comes back to the reform committee, and then the whole DNC votes on it. But they ask for reforms like the effective elimination of superdelegates and stuff like that. And we'll see. We'll be able to see if they reformed or if they didn't reform, and if they're serious about this or they're not serious about this. And then we'll judge accordingly how you want to vote and who you want to support and all that stuff. And that's a giant factor, is how fair is the DNC going to make this thing? Okay, now I see it's working because all these questions are popping up. So anyway, Carl, I hope I answered your question there. Yes, the DNC started taking corporate money. Now we're trying to fight back to make them be what they should have been all along. And it's a question of whether or not they'll actually abide by what the people want. Nello asks, I feel like you should have stayed on JD. Kind of feels like it's being taken over by social justice warriors. Okay, so that let me address that, because of course this was something that was gigantic on the internet for understandable reasons. I think Cenk was put in a no-win position, and then I think subsequently I was put in a no-win position. So everybody knows most of the story. There were old blog posts from the late 90s and early 2000s that popped up of Cenk back when he was a right-winger. Not that that's an excuse, of course, for the substance of what he said, but some of the stuff was tongue-in-cheek. There were other blogs that were probably serious where he had some odious opinions and stuff. And so basically the staff at JD was like, listen, you're one of the faces of this movement. We don't want that. Because one of the things he said was, I think my reading of this, I think what he was saying was tongue-in-cheek, and he was poking fun of himself for not being able to get laid. But he said, obviously, the genes of women are flawed because they don't want to reproduce nearly enough for everybody to get along peaceably and fruitfully. At first, when I read that, I didn't think it was tongue-in-cheek. I thought it was dead serious. And I was like, damn, that's kind of like the definition of sexism. And Cenk was massively sexist. But then I read it over and over, and yeah, it looks like he's making fun of himself for not being able to get laid. But anyway, the staff at JD said, sorry, we don't want to have a leader of our movement who said things like that at any point, because then you're feeding into the narrative of the Bernie bro. And you're going to make it so people dismiss us and say, yeah, we were right about these guys all along. They have one of their leaders, one of the faces of the movement was a sexist. Or, of course, the Hillary people would say probably is a sexist, even though that's nowhere near true. Of course, Cenk's not sexist. So that's what they said. So Cenk stepped down and said, listen, I don't want to hurt any of the candidates, so I will willingly step down. But then when he was stepping down, on the way out the door, they kind of kicked him in the ass. And they released a venomous statement, kind of saying he contributes to rape culture and he's part of the patriarchy. And I stepped down because, number one, some people were blaming me for that, and they thought I was the one who threw Cenk under the bus. And number two, I didn't want to have my name associated with that. I'm not going to have my name associated with smearing Cenk like that. So we basically had a split between the media arm of Justice Democrats and Justice Democrats, the organization. But listen, here's the thing, man. So while I have deep disagreements with the staff, and that's why I stepped down, and I think they treated Cenk unfairly, like if they had not been dicks about him stepping down, I probably would have stayed with JD, because again, Cenk said, I'm willing to resign. I'm going to step down because I don't want to hurt the candidates. So if they, said, hey, we want to thank him for how much he helped us, but he's willingly stepping down, and we appreciate his contribution to the progressive movement, and he's evolved in his position, and he's obviously doesn't have these odious beliefs and all that stuff, I probably would have stayed. But I didn't want to have my name associated with that and with how they proceeded. But the most important point, I think, is, and you could see this with him and you could see this with me, I still support every one of the JD candidates because they didn't have anything to do with this. They had nothing to do with this. It really came down to the staff. And this isn't me throwing the staff under the bus either. I can see their point. Like, oh, he's a leader, but he said these things that were terrible. I would argue, yeah, but he doesn't believe those things anymore. And he's apologized. And it's been, 18 years and yada, yada, yada. But like, I get where they're coming from, kind of, but I disagree with them, which is why I stepped down, because of how venomous the statement was. But I still think they did great work overall. They do great organizing. They did great infrastructure work. And I support 100% of the JD candidates. Because listen, guys, we got to be bigger than that, man. We got to be bigger than that. We got to be bigger than just taking, side issues and then making our decisions about who we're going to vote for based. So, like, I've seen some people say, I'm done with the Justice Democrats. But the candidates had nothing to do with this, and they're all fighting for Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and to end the wars and a new deal. So that doesn't make sense to say, oh, I'm against them now. So listen, if you say, I don't want to support the organization of Justice Democrats, that's your prerogative, man. But if you don't support the candidates, I think that's dumb. So, if you were contributing to Justice Democrats, the organization, but you don't want to do that anymore, okay, then contribute directly to the candidates, to their own individual campaigns. That would be my suggestion. But overall, look, man, there's no hard feelings. It's not cool that it unfolded like this, but there's no hard feelings. And, there are multiple ways to come to leftist politics. Some people come to leftist politics because they read Noam Chomsky and they get interested in shit. Look at how much people are getting fucked over. Look at the economic number I just pointed out. Really? 6 people have more wealth than half the world combined? That's fucking crazy. And then they go, I want to address that. I want to have a living wage. I want to have strong unions. I want to have Medicare for all. And they come through that path to leftist politics. There are other people who come to leftist politics by, taking a sociology 101 class in college and learning about the oppression of minorities in America. And their worldview gets shaped by that. Now, sometimes their solutions I don't agree with. Some people might argue for gender quotas or race quotas in the workplace. I don't agree with that. I think that's deeply illiberal. I don't think that's progressive at all. Some people in that movement I think are too rigid in their ideology, in that if you ever said anything offensive ever, well, now we're going to cut all ties with you and you're now the enemy. I don't agree with that either. I think that's rigid thinking, and it's really like a new form of Puritanism. So I don't agree with those people. But those are not the people who are running for office. The people who are running for office, like I said, are people whose main focus is getting money out of politics, Medicare for all, free college, living wage, so on and so forth. So I would just tell everybody, listen, you have disagreements with the JD staff. I have disagreements with the JD staff. But don't abandon the candidates because they had nothing to do with any of this. I literally don't even know what many of the candidates' opinions are on this because they had nothing to do with it. But nonetheless, it happened how it happened. And we just have to move forward. And understand there is an attempt to do divide and conquer here as well. There's a big attempt to do divide and conquer. And don't let them win. Don't let them win. We could all say, hey, I disagree with the people who made that decision. I disagree with the people who made that decision. But we don't have to, therefore, curl up in the fetal position and let Republicans run roughshod and let corporate Democrats run roughshod. Because we can all agree we don't want right-wingers to win who have deeply odious policies. We don't want corporate Democrats to win. So even though there are big disagreements within the movement, don't take it out on candidates who are right and who are fighting to improve people's lives. Cenk said this after the fact, too. He said, keep your eyes on the prize. That's really what matters here. Okay, so I hope I answered that. Jesus, somebody gave $100. Wow, mutant gospel. I've been following the development of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. You think this has a future? As I see it, banks should not be in charge of our own money. So that's a good question. Oh, wait, that's not $100. That's some other currency that I don't know what it is. But nonetheless, let me answer that for you. I think Bitcoin has a future. I think cryptocurrencies have a future, but it's not the end-all be-all. So I know that there are some hardcore cryptocurrency people who think like it will replace government money and think it will replace other forms of currency. I don't know about that. And I know there are people who think that like it's not possible for Bitcoin to be a bubble because of some mathematical weird reason. That's nonsense. Of course it can be a bubble. Anything can be a bubble. So yes, it's possible that it's in a bubble. It has gone up and down recently. But I'm not super against cryptocurrencies. I'm not super for cryptocurrencies. I just think they are what they are. They're an investment. If you got in early, you made a lot of money off Bitcoin. I know some people who got in early and made a lot of money off Bitcoin. But what I would say is avoid the religious aspects of it, where people think like, no, seriously, you can't. I don't know what you guys mean. You can't. This isn't a bubble that's gonna burst because it's not possible, mathematically impossible for the bubble to burst. Nonsense. And when people say, oh, it will replace other forms of money, no, I don't know about that. In fact, I highly doubt that. But it's an investment like other investments. And if you're into investing and you're into cryptocurrencies, by all means, God bless. Ironically, even though I don't believe in God. Okay. Any thoughts on Trump's recent statements on India and Pakistan? On Twitter, he accused Pakistan of lies and dissent, saying the U.S. was foolish to have given Pakistan over $33 billion in aid. What would you do regarding this issue? That's a good question. I don't know. The U.S. has kind of propped up the Pakistani government and apparently given them a tremendous amount of money in aid. I don't know why that's done, especially because that government is not particularly good. I mean, they treat Ahmadi Muslims, for example, like shit. They're terrible to minorities. So I don't know. There's probably some weird reason why we give them the money in terms of like trade or something. It might have something to do with trade routes or control, or you putting air bases there, or whatever the case is. There's some other reason for that. But Trump, this is what Trump does. He shakes up everything and tries to, and just kind of talks off the cuff. But I don't know. I guess he's poking Pakistan with a stick and taking India's side. And listen, that's an issue people don't talk about nearly enough, but it's a scary issue, India and Pakistan, where they both have nuclear weapons and they hate each other and they've been like feuding forever. So look out for that. Trump is like literally the last guy I would want in office to try to handle a situation like that, because I don't think he's smart enough to do it, and I don't think he's reasoned enough, and I don't think he has the temperament for it, even though I never make like temperament arguments and he's not. But that's one of those things where temperament matters there. And he's poking Pakistan with a stick and probably going to escalate further with Pakistan and India. So that's not good. That's not good. And Pakistan and India is a major issue. Apparently, it's one of the main issues that keeps presidents up at night. At least that's what I've heard. But no, I if I was him, I would just shut the fuck up about poking people with sticks on Twitter from other governments. Let's see. Take this money, you lesbian some bitch. Do I think the swell and sexual crime accusations will be weaponized by squeezy, sleazy folks like Ted Cruz? Also, when will we have atheist candidates openly running? The atheist thing, I think, is coming soon. The atheist thing is coming soon. There are going to be people who run, because millennials are, I think, majority non-religious. I could be wrong about that. I know we have 20% overall in the country now that are nones, N-O-N-E-S, so no affiliation with religion. But I think I read somewhere that millennials were like 51% or something non-religious. But again, I could be wrong about that. But we're way more non-religious than older generations. So I think it's just a matter of time until somebody runs and just says, yeah, I don't believe. And then that's just a non-issue. And everybody goes, yeah, okay. So they finally broke that third rail. Like before Obama won, people were like, a black person can't win in America. It just can't happen. And then Obama ran and people voted for Obama and he won twice. So the same thing could happen with non-believers, even though the polls show right now there's a hefty amount of bigotry against non-believers. In fact, people are less likely to vote for an atheist than they are for a Muslim in America, which is like, wow, really? And so they hate Muslims and atheists. But if the right one comes along, people will go, yeah, of course I'll vote for that one. So I think that's coming soon. And I don't really get your question about Cruz. Will be weaponized by squeezy, sleazy folks like Ted Cruz. Yeah, I think the sexual assault allegations are going to be weaponized by the right. 100%. 100%. And it's going to be weaponized by corporate Democrats against the left. 100%. That's what's going to happen. And to an extent, that is what ended up happening with, the Justice Democrat staff and Cenk, is that these old blog posts were dug up by enemies. And they say, oh, look at this. The leader of your movement is sexist. Was arguably sexist 18 years ago. Certainly not is anymore, and apologized for it and is sincere in his apology. But I guess you got to get rid of him. So that was an attempt to divide and conquer, a sleazy trick from the right. And it worked. So I do think this is what's going to happen. And this is why we have to be nuanced about this stuff and look at each case on a case-by-case basis. And we also need to believe in due process. Like with Franken stepping down and stuff, there should have been an actual investigation. It should have came out with conclusions, and then the thing you should have made your mind up about what needed to be done. But the fact that there was no investigation and Democratic leadership said, you're done, you're going to step down, we want you to step down. Well, now you set a precedent. And the precedent is make an accusation, the Democrat has to step down, the Democrat has to go away. So what do you think is going to happen? Of course, there are going to be more accusations from the right. Of course, they're going to say, oh, this really powerful, strong, popular Democrat. Sorry, there was somebody who said something in 1978 about what you did to them, and then I guess you got to step down now. So that's one of the problems with this. That's why we got to keep our eyes on the prize in terms of what matters the most to everybody, which is improving everybody's life, getting money out of politics, doing Medicare for all, having a living wage, ending the wars. If we're not focused on the policies, then we're going to get sidetracked by all this shit. Oh my God, you said something in 1999 that was terrible. Oh, you're done. No, stop, breathe, relax. And I know people on the left who agree with this stuff would say, no, but that's just us being principled. When we throw Franken under the bus, when we throw, Cenk or whoever under the bus, that's just us being principled and saying we take these issues seriously. Yeah, but it's also unprincipled in that you don't believe in due process, because you should have went through a process before you determined, in the case of Franken, yeah, we're going to let him go because these accusations are credible. When you don't have due process and you just say, we're just going to get rid of him, okay, then there's going to be endless accusations and they're going to call for you to stick to the same thing you did with Franken. Hey, I know that this accusation sounds like bullshit, but hey, you got rid of Franken right away, so why not get rid of this person right away? So yes, you have to be objective about this stuff. And we have to beware to not hop on a bandwagon too quick. Aaron asked, do you feel donating to organizations like the NDRC or the Sierra Club really do much to fight climate change? And if not, what do you think is the best way to do so beyond just voting progressive? That's a good question. I don't know, because I don't know enough about exactly what the Sierra Club does and all that stuff. But unfortunately, the only answer I have for you is what you said for me not to address, which is you said other than just voting progressive. I would say that really is the only answer I could think of. I mean, if you know of groups that are doing pollution cleanup or whatever the case is, then donate to them, of course, if they're doing direct action. But outside of that, yeah, you just got to vote for candidates who really want to fix this stuff and really want to fight for it. So that's the best. That's the best answer I have, even though it's not exactly what you were looking for. Tinker asks, I'm a member of the PLP. When door knocking, advocating public ownership of key infrastructure was a vote winner, would this be palatable in the U.S.? Public ownership of key infrastructure was a vote winner. Is that by the way, I know I should probably know this, but PLP, is that something Labor Party? Progressive Labor Party? I don't know what that means, man. I'm sorry, Tinker. But is it good to advocate public ownership of key infrastructure? So yes and no. Me and everybody knows who listens to me, because I say it all the time, I'm a social democrat. So in other words, like real committed lefties look at me as like a, wishy-washy moderate character who they agree with me sometimes, disagree with me other times. And of course, in the context of U.S. politics in Washington, they look at me as a flaming far lefty, even though that's hilarious. But in my opinion, it just depends on which industry we're talking about. If we're talking about healthcare, nationalize the fuck out of that shit. We're talking about education, college, nationalize the fuck out of that. Roads, bridges, of course, nationalize it. So there are a lot of things that I think should be the commons, if you will. That's what this is referred to, the commons. So to nationalize public ownership. Would I be open to hearing a conversation about other things like oil and gas? Yeah. I mean, oil companies do take it from our lands. So that's really our oil. So am I open to a conversation about nationalizing the oil industry? Sure. But are there things that shouldn't be? Of course, I think. Some people in my audience might disagree with me. But, look at the cars that came out of the Soviet Union. They're a joke. They're terrible because there's no competition. And that's not an industry that makes sense to have the public control it. It makes sense to have private ownership in that area. So you have competition, you create the best car for a lower price. And, when it comes to TVs, video games, consumer goods, I'm fine with capitalism in that respect. So there's a vibrant debate to be had about what gets privatized and what doesn't get privatized. And I think it's a nuanced discussion, and we need to treat it as such, as opposed to the idiot libertarians who say everything should be private. That's just stupid and obviously wrong when you look at how successful, for example, the healthcare systems are that are public. You can't just say private's the answer when it's proven it's not, because ours is a mess, our system, and it's more private. And I don't agree with the Marxists who would say, well, everything should be public ownership. No, I think it depends on which industry. There's a middle ground there. And that's why I'm a social democrat, is because some things it should be socialist, other things it should be capitalist. And so it's a nuanced picture. A lot of times before your videos, I get the most right-wing ads you've ever seen. Crowder with PragerU, Committee for 45, pro-tax bill. You get your paycheck from the Koch bros. That's funny. So the way YouTube works, when you do see an ad on my videos, which unfortunately is not as much as it used to be because we've had an over 50% cut as a result of adpocalypse. For a while, we were on a blacklist. Then thankfully, we got off the blacklist, but it's still over a 50% cut in revenue. But the way YouTube works is I don't talk to any sponsors ever. I don't speak to any advertisers, never have, never will. So what happens is Google and YouTube have ad teams. And people will, like Steven Crowder, for example, since you gave that example, he'll go to YouTube and he'll say, I would like to buy ads on news and politics, the whole category of news and politics. So he buys ads on news and politics. YouTube and Google place those ads on the different news and politics channels. And boom, that's how you get a Steven Crowder ad or a Prager University ad before my videos. It's because they decided, I want to advertise. I'm going to advertise on YouTube. and I'm going to buy in news and politics in bulk. And so they don't pick exactly where their ads go in the news and politics area. YouTube and Google just bulk place their ads in news and politics. So that's why sometimes, I've done atheistic segments, like irreligious segments, and then before it, you see an ad for like the Mormon Church. It's because the Mormon Church went to YouTube and Google and said, hey, I'm going to pay for ads in religion, in the category of religion on YouTube. Well, in the category of religion is me when I'm bashing it. So that's why it shows up before. But in terms of worrying about conflicts of interest, you don't have to worry at all. I mean, just look at my content. Just look at my content. That'll tell you everything you need to know. I've never had a conversation with these people, never will have a conversation with these people. And that was the original genius of YouTube, is that there's a giant buffer between the content creators and the ads that get put on. So that's not something you get with traditional media and corporate media, is you have management that puts talent on air, and they're directly responsive to their advertisers. So with YouTube, you don't have that. You have Google and YouTube make the deals with the advertisers, but the content creators, there's like a wall of separation between the content creators and the ads. Now, obviously, it's a different story if they do an ad in a video and somebody's promoting something in a video. That's obviously the creator spoke to an advertiser and made their own deal. I don't do that. So that's why you see those ads on my videos. And I actually think there's a beauty to it, because if you think about it, that means Steven Crowder is paying me some of the money that's made for the show. That's kind of awesome that, like, I bash Steven Crowder and all these right-wingers, and they're like, oh, we hate you so much. Anyway, here, take my money. I think that's fucking beautiful. Anthony asks, what are your thoughts on weddings? I know, weird question, but I've heard people talk about how weddings are just tradition for tradition's sake. Well, it depends. It depends. I mean, if people really love each other and they want to make a commitment to each other, then yeah, a wedding can be an absolutely beautiful thing. I think that sometimes people go over the top and it's like peacocking and it annoys the shit out of me. And, it's basically like they're announcing to the world, hey, we're only going to fuck each other. Isn't that great? Like, I'm only going to fuck her and she's only going to fuck me. I just want everybody to know in the world that we're only going to fuck each other from here on out. It's like, okay, relax. We get it. So they could be a little obnoxious, but no, sometimes it could be beautiful if it's really, if it's only people who you really love and trust who are at it, and it's not this fucking big show that you're trying to put on for everybody to see, and if it's a genuine heart-to-heart kind of thing, and it's just a demonstration of your love for each other. So I think it depends on, which wedding, if that answers your question. What are the chances of you and Pacman talking about Russia? He's almost reaching Rachel Maddow levels. I like David Pacman. Him and I, we talk from time to time. He's a friend of mine. This is something that I spoke about in the last live stream. I think I might do a talk with him. It's just a matter of finding the time and all that stuff. But yes, suffice to say, I don't agree with what I would call the Russia hysteria that's coming from mostly corporate media. But there are people who are not in corporate media, including David Pacman, who believe a lot of this stuff. So yes, there should be a conversation that him and I have. Love from Saudi Arabia. Just wanted to see what you feel about the new changes in Saudi Arabia, first-time taxes, and what do you feel about Mohammed bin Salman? So I don't know what happened in terms of taxes. Did they not? I think did they not have taxes before, and now they have taxes? I think that literally might be what it is, because I remember from years ago I read an article or something where they mentioned they don't pay taxes or something, but I don't know, so I'm not going to touch that part of it. The positive changes are women driving. That's wonderful. But I mean, we shouldn't treat with kid gloves. We should say that's great, but you still have to catch up like 80 years before you catch up to the rest of the world. So in other words, even though women can drive, Saudi women have to cover from head to toe. They need permission from a man to do stuff. So that's just, I don't want, it's damning with faint praise to be like, yes, women can drive. Anyway, now let's all go eat a sandwich. No, they're still really oppressed. So more needs to be done in that respect. In terms of Mohammed bin Salman, not a fan. Not a fan. Because he's doing authoritarian moves as he's claiming that, I'm protecting from the authoritarians. No, you're not. You locked up everybody in a fucking hotel. And you said they're so corrupt and that's why I'm doing it. Yeah, but didn't this guy, he just went and bought the most expensive house ever. It was like a $450 million mansion. He went and bought that. No, $300 million mansion. He bought a $450 million painting. All the while, now that he's preaching austerity. So the masses need austerity, but I could buy a $450 million fucking painting. Nonsense. That's terrible. So that's, it's a power grab. It's corruption. I think he might have a positive effect in terms of secularization, moving more in a secular direction for Saudi Arabia. But in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, that's where it stops. He's still going to be a very authoritarian figure, and he's going to, looks like he's trying to accumulate power all around him. But that's my take on it. And I hope that answers your question. Do you know about Ray Kurzweil, and what do you think about his theory of an upcoming singularity? I don't know enough about that to really comment on it. I do vaguely know what you're talking about with this guy, but I don't know enough about it to comment on it, so I won't do it. Killing it, Kyle. Thank you, Cole. What are the chances of you and Pacman? Already did that. I hope I'm not missing any guys. I feel like I missed a few. Hey, I think that's it. Oh, $2. Crowder equals open invite for you to debate. Will you accept? I think he's a liar. I think he's a liar. Not a liar in that he, he won't debate me. I think he will debate. But I think he's a liar in that he's not an honest actor. So to debate seems like ridiculous to do that when you know that the guy's not an honest actor. I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who says climate change is a hoax. By the way, full stop. Like, okay, if you don't agree with that yet, then why? That's like almost like, hey, let's go debate the flat earth or not. No, I'm not going to debate flat earth. What a waste of fucking time. If you think a flat earth is real, why would I debate you? Like, you need to catch up. Like, it's just like, you can't just assert anything and then go, I demand you debate me. No, well, you just asserted something fucking ridiculous. I'm not going to give credence to that viewpoint by debating it when it is not a debatable viewpoint. So that's how I feel about, like, if people say, oh, let's debate evolution. No, why would I debate evolution? I'm doing a disservice if I debate it, because it's like, if you believe in creation, you're just wrong. It's not a debatable issue. Now, with Crowder, he thinks climate change is a hoax. He literally wrote an article and stands by to this day where he said Hitler's a liberal. It's just so stupid. It's hard to wrap your mind around how stupid and ignorant it is. You know what he is? He's a guy who made his mind up before he hears the issue. His whole thing is, I'm the right-wing guy. That's who I am. So therefore, I'm going to argue for the right-wing position. I think that's intellectually dishonest. That's what I think that is. So I don't think he's a serious person. So I wouldn't debate him. There are people who I massively disagree with who I would debate or who I would have a discussion with. For example, Sargon of Akkad and I, there was probably a time years ago where we agreed on more things. I think him and I disagree now more on more things. But I've had 4 or 5 conversations with him, some of them where we had giant disagreements. But I did that because I don't think he's dishonest. I think Steven Crowder is fucking dishonest. I think that's what he is. So, but listen, even saying all that, maybe there's a time where I will do a talk with him, because they're not going away. They're guys like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder. They're just not going away. They're there, and they make horrifically stupid points, and they somehow have amassed a following, and it's just sad that that's the case. So if at some point I can't take it anymore, and I view it as like a civic duty to respond to them in a format like that, then I might do it. But as of now, my approach to it is, those are people who need to be fact-checked, not debated. Because when you debate them, you're giving a false... The problem with a debate is it comes down to sophistry. So in other words, somebody could be 100% right, but they're shitty at debating, and it'll look like they lost, even though that person is correct. And the person who was more charismatic got their point across better, and it looks like they won, even though they're 100% factually incorrect. So there's a problem with just debating in general. But, I caved for the Razor Fist debate. You guys kept telling me, we want to see you debate a right winger. I said, okay, I don't like debates. I think they're a little ridiculous. It's like the WWE of intellectual pursuits. But fine, I'll do a debate for you guys. And everybody knows how that went. I think Razorfist is still trying to recover from that. Sorry, Razorfist. He's actually a nice guy personally, but I mean, let's face it, that was a bloodbath. But you know, maybe at some point I'll do it, but I'm not happy about it. I'm not. I think this is stupid that he's even viewed in a light where it's like, oh, he's a reasonable person you should talk to. No, he's a liar and he's a smear merchant and he's dishonest and he's playing a character. I'm the right-wing guy. That's who I am. Yay. Now he could try to flip that back on me and say, wait, no, you're the left-wing guy. But that's not true. There are times, first of all, I rip the Democratic Party almost as much as I rip the Republican Party. But then there are things where, you know, I disagree with people who are not even just corporate Democrats. I just told you, I don't agree with communism. I don't agree with Marxism. So it's not, you know, I try to be objective about things and empirical and just go where the evidence takes me. He works backwards from his conclusion. I'm the Republican. I'm the right-wing guy. You know, transgenderism is bullshit. Climate change is a hoax. He was for fucking Ted Cruz. He was for Ted Cruz. So, whoa, it's like, God damn it. And then, you know, again, dishonest. When Joe Rogan tried to bring up religion with him, he was like, got weird about it. Like, no, I don't like to talk about that. Why? Because he can't fucking defend it. He's a Christian. He can't defend it. He can't defend a fucking zombie Jewish carpenter walking on water. He can't do it. So what does he do? I don't like talking about that. Because you got fucking caught. And then he argued with Rogan for like an hour and a half or some shit about how he didn't think at the time. He may have changed his mind. I don't know. But at the time, Steven Crowder didn't think weed should be legal. And Rogan's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He's like, right-wing Republican bullshit. Blah. He's just playing a character. I'm the right-winger. That's who I am. I'm Mr. Right-wing guy. Aren't I cool? Isn't being a right-wing idiot cool now, guys? And then Rogan came out after and like apologized or whatever. I don't know why he did that. Anyway, I think I went through them all. No, I'm sure I fucked this up again. Who do you think is the worst of the young, hip, right-wing personalities? My vote is for the racist Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux. Who do I think is the worst? That's a great question. It's either Shapiro or Crowder. It's either Shapiro, he talks really fast and he's super reactionary. So people think like, oh yeah, he's smart. But no, he's just talking really fast and he's reactionary. You know, his fucking tweet from years ago was like, hashtag settlements rock, Arabs live in sewage. Like, that's textbook definition of a bigot. But people think he's intelligent? Like, no, he's a fucking reactionary jerk off. Of course he's not. He go read his old articles on gay marriage. He has these preposterous arguments that are like Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity on steroids, where he's like, if you go to college, you're donating to the militant homosexual agenda. So he's just saying all the dumb things that any Republican has been saying, any, like, you know, Fox News personality has been saying for years, but he repackaged it in a way where, like, all of his sycophantic fans are like, Ben Shapiro destroys fucking gay marriage. There's another one that I retweeted the other day. It was, Ben Shapiro destroys freeloading cancer patient. Like, this is how these people think. Again, so he's kind of like Crowder, and then he's like, I play for a team. But Crowder's a little worse in that respect, because at least Ben Shapiro, he's like, he gives mixed things about Trump. Sometimes he's anti-Trump. Sometimes he, you know, does apologetics for Trump, but at least it's mixed. Steven Crowder, he was for Ted Cruz. Now he's for Trump. And, you know, now all he does is bash. Like, there's not a single show where he's not bashing the left, Crowder. That's everything he does. Everything. You know, he has to protect his narrative of right-wingers are precious. They didn't do anything wrong ever. That's all of Steven Crowder's show. You know, you'll see me all the time. I'll bash the left. I'll bash the right. I'll just call it like I see it and like what I think is objectively true. He's playing for a team. That's what he's doing. So I think it's either Shapiro or Crowder. Foa and Monk found less people think democracy is essential, especially young people. Why do you think that is? I guess you're citing some sort of research where young people find democracy less people think democracy is essential, especially young people. Probably because we have a democracy on paper and it's functioning as an oligarchy. So people are making the connection. Oh, we live in a democracy, but I'm getting fucked over. That's probably why. People in the West, they go, oh, we live in a democracy, but then why is everything fucked up? So they're making a connection there. In reality, the case is, of course, we function as an oligarchy. So you should really be mad at oligarchy or kleptocracy or plutocracy, because that's really what we live in. And we should have a more of a democratic system. A constitutional republic and a representative democracy. That's what we are on paper, and that's what we should have. So I think that's why people are making the connection between how shitty everything is and the fact that we're in a democracy. But I think that's wrong. They have to look at that we function as an oligarchy, and we should be mad at oligarchy. How do you respond to Ben Shapiro's argument of taxes and social programs are theft? It's the same as putting a gun to your head and demanding money. Leo, that's a great question. And the response to that is very simple. He's just denying the social contract. This is what you see from like 14-year-olds who are going through their Ayn Rand phase. What you do is you jerk off in a sock, and then you go read some Ayn Rand, then you go jerk off in a sock again. And it stems from just such a simplistic notion of like, okay, reject modern society, reject a social contract, which every modern nation on earth has, and just state that any form of taxation is theft. It's very akin to saying the government demanding I can't have child labor. That's tyranny. That's like what that argument is. It's saying any government action by definition is tyranny. If they say, hey, there's a minimum wage law, you can't pay this person a slave wage. This is like them saying, no, that's tyranny. The government is being tyrannical by telling me I have to pay a living wage. The government is being tyrannical by saying I can't have an 8-year-old do labor for me. That's tyranny of the government. That's what that is. That's what these people would say, because that's a genuine belief they have. So the response to that is, okay, if you really believe that all taxation is theft, go pick a no taxation country and go live in it. If you want to go into the fucking tundra of Siberia, they're not paying any taxes in the tundra of Siberia. You want to go to fucking Somalia, where there's no centralized government, by all means, go ahead. But every modern nation in the world has a social contract, because one of the features of having a functioning society is having a social contract and saying, okay, look, so if you make this amount of money, I give the government 30% of my money, and then the government in return builds roads, builds bridges, keeps the water clean, keeps the food safe, has the police force, has the fire department. Like, this is all, like, that's the thing that's so frustrating about guys like Ben Shapiro, is they take preposterously simple-minded, silly, ignorant arguments, and they repackage it as if it's this, like, brilliant intellectual thing. Like, well, taxation is theft, checkmate. No, that's like, again, this is shit 14-year-olds read in Ayn Rand, and then they get past their Ayn Rand phase when they're 17. But no, these guys are stuck in it, and they think those arguments carry weight when they're just ridiculous. Every modern nation has a social contract, because in order to have a modern nation, you have to have a social contract. So if you like anything about society, you like the fact that there's some taxation. The real argument is, the real discussion is being had, hey, where do we draw the line? How much taxation makes sense? How much taxation is too much? And what should you get for that money? That's where the real discussion is being had. But these guys just want to blow up the entire conversation and say, taxation is theft, and that's it. I mean, that's such a reactionary argument. It's just so stupid. It's just like, it's like the thing that, again, I hate to bring it up again, but like your ignorant far-right uncle at the holiday meal table. Like, taxation is theft. Anyway, let me just give you my fucking cut and dried opinions that I haven't thought of at all. So that's how I respond to that. Hey, Kyle, I ran across your show a while back. You helped me become an atheist. I believe in more progressive ideas and have wanted to argue them to right-wingers. I end up just parroting you. Any advice? Just expose yourself to more than just my show. So, you can read Rawls, you can read Chomsky, you can read, there's like a bunch of books you can read, a bunch of other shows you can watch. And then what you'll find is that, listen, everybody is an amalgamation of all of their life experience and all of the ideas that other people have presented to them or that they've read somewhere. People come up with original thoughts too, but for everybody, I would contend probably 5% or less of the things that you believe and you talk about are genuine original thoughts. Because listen, there's billions of people on the planet. There's a whole giant human history before us. People have thought of so many different things. So it's not a bad thing that, you know, you couldn't come up with everything on your own. It's that you read what other people or hear what other people have said and you piece together what you think makes sense. So everybody's like that. I'm like that. You know, it's not like many of the things I'm talking about I haven't heard from other sources. It's not like I didn't hear Bill Maher make an argument on politically incorrect in 1999 or some shit about, you know, economics that I thought was convincing. Like sometimes I'm taking their arguments, repackaging that, saying, here's my idea, but I'm inspired by other people, and you put them together. So I would just say expose yourself to more than just my show. And what you'll find is you'll hear other people make points where you go, oh, that's a brilliant thought. And I never heard Kyle say it. I never heard anybody else say it. And then now that becomes a part of your ideology, and you just piece it together and you try to make sense of the world and all that stuff. So it's just a matter of more exposure. When you expose yourself to more people, then you're going to get more ideas, because we're all an amalgamation of our entire life experience and all the ideas and policies and thoughts of others. And then you put them through the filter of your own brain, and then you come out with your ideology. So there's no shame in that. There's no shame in every now and then you parrot a point that, oh, Kyle made this point first, or he worded it this way or that way. That's fine. It's just a matter of exposing yourself to more than just mine, and then you'll be able to put together everything and formulate your own worldview. Let's see what else we got here. Have some Siberian tundra money, you handsome man. Please register as a foreign agent now, you colluding fuck. But seriously, in March, we will have another joke election of Putin. Would you cover it? Of course, of course. Listen, you know, I want to avoid that trap. There's a trap that people fall into all the time of, because you're against American imperialism, there's like a knee-jerk reaction of, therefore, the other governments must be right. But that's not true. It can be true that U.S. imperialism is a force for evil in the world, and oftentimes it is the U.S.'s fault, various things. But that doesn't mean that Vladimir Putin's lovely and he should stay in power. Fucking of course not. There could be an issue where the U.S. is at fault in something, but it's a nuanced take to then realize that, yeah, but that doesn't mean Putin's good. You know, you actually see this happening right now in Iran. So you have the protesters in the streets in Iran basically calling for revolution. They want big changes to what's happening in Iran. And you have people on the left in the U.S. who are going, nope, they're illegitimate protests. They're foreign agents. So it's nefarious. And it's like, no. So people can be protesting, and idiots like Trump and Cruz can be saying, I'm with the protesters. But that doesn't mean that the protesters don't have legitimate grievances. So, you know, I want Cruz and Trump to shut up because they want, for nefarious reasons, they're backing the protesters because they want to destabilize Iran and put in a U.S. puppet, of course. But that doesn't mean that Iranians going out in the street and fighting to end a theocracy is a bad thing. In fact, that's a good thing. They should end the theocracy. It should be a secular Iran. It should be an Iranian government with less corruption that represents the people. You know, some of the protesters are wrong because they go out there and they scream for they want the Shah back. That's fucking crazy. You shouldn't want to replace one Islamist dictator with a secular dictator. You should want to replace an Islamist dictator with a fucking democratic society. But bottom line is, people should need to stop being reactionary. So in other words, because I don't buy the Russia hysteria, that doesn't mean that Putin is good. He's not good. He's not good. And I hope he gets ousted in a peaceful way. And I hope there's a real election where somebody else wins. But he's going to rig it, and then we're going to have to cover how he rigs it. But we just have to be clear when we talk about that. That doesn't mean the U.S. should go in there and topple him. Because that's the implication that's going to happen a lot of the times when you talk about that. If you have John McCain or Lindsey Graham or a neocon, David Frum, Bill Kristol talk about Putin rigging the election, they'll be right that he rigged the election, but they'll be wrong in their implication, which is, well, obviously the U.S. should do something about that and like go topple him or something. So we need to be more nuanced about this stuff. So I like the point that you brought up there, and I'm happy that I was able to lay that out. Ballot initiatives like in Michigan, ranked choice voting, or state Medicare. If you could have one in your state now, which would you choose? Oh, Medicare for all in New York, 100%. By the way, I'm for the other stuff. Ballot initiatives. We do have some ballot initiatives, but I think the process to get it on the ballot in New York is difficult. Because I remember voting on direct issues recently, like gambling, for example. They did one on gambling, like, oh, should they allow a casino in upstate New York, yada, yada. I voted yes on that, of course. But so we already have ballot initiatives to an extent. Of course, I'd like to see more of that because I think ballot initiatives are awesome. They give people a chance to do direct democracy, which I think is lovely. Ranked choice voting is great. I definitely support that. But 100% Medicare for all, I think, is the most important of the ones that you laid out there. But thank you for that question. That was good. Is child labor in developing countries bad, even if thousands of children wouldn't otherwise have enough money for their most basic needs without it? I think that's a false dichotomy. I get your question, but I think it's a false dichotomy, so I reject the premise. Because this is ultimately the argument that corporations make and rich people in the US, billionaires, captains of industry make, is they go, what? Sure, we have child labor in fucking Bangladesh to make our shitty shoes, and we pay them like 3 cents an hour or some ridiculously low amount. But what if it wasn't for us doing that? They'd be peasants out in the field starving to death, farming. I just don't accept that framing. I think it's a totally self-serving argument that's probably not true. And I don't agree with outsourcing. That's the other part of this. Is so we talk about, oh my God, the US, we have child labor for corporations in different places all around the world. My answer to that would be, I want to bring back protectionism. You're not going to find a single Democrat who would actually say that, use those words, protectionist, because it's been so demonized by the right, and they've done it effectively, where they go, what? You're either in favor of free markets or you're in favor of protectionism. You know, and every Democrat goes, oh, I'm in favor of free market, the free market. I'm in favor of, you know, free trade deals that are crafted in a way that makes sense for workers. That's all a ruse. That whole conversation is a ruse. The real argument to make is, no, we don't want to outsource any more of our jobs. We want to put laws in place that penalize corporations that outsource their jobs. We want to bring back tariffs. So if you want to make your goods in some fucking sweatshop in Bangladesh, well, then guess what? When your goods come back in the country, we're taxing the fuck out of them. So you were making a lot of money because you have child labor happening where they're basically slaves making your shitty shoes. It costs you $1 to make the shoes and you sell them for 120. Well, guess what? Now we're going to tax the shit out of it when you bring it into the country, so you only make $1 on those shoes. So in other words, we're now incentivizing you to keep those jobs in the U.S. and create those jobs in the U.S. and stop the race to the bottom. So I don't even agree that we should be outsourcing jobs. Never mind, we outsource jobs and then those jobs are fucking like child labor in those countries. I think we need to take care of people in this country. I think that's what the government should be doing. So stop outsourcing the jobs. Get out of NAFTA. Get out of CAFTA. Reform or get out of the World Trade Organization. I'm fine with doing trade, but we should trade out of necessity. So we don't have X. We need X. This country makes X. So now we have a deal where we bring that in. But if we can make something in this country, then fucking make it in this country and have laws where if you're going to set up a company, okay, you have to create the jobs in this country. So, and this is why Bernie Sanders was the closest to making these arguments, because he's against NAFTA and all that stuff and permanent normal trade relations with China. And Trump, even his rhetoric on the campaign trail was, I'm against TPP, we're going to get rid of NAFTA. So they're hinting at these arguments, but they have to, I would explain it in its totality like I just did. We don't have to accept fucking child labor laws. We don't have to accept sweatshops and shit. So I wouldn't outsource the jobs to even give people the opportunity in the first place to create a fucking sweatshop. Okay. That's all I got, I think, guys. Am I missing something here? No, I don't think I'm missing something. I think... Oh, wait, I am missing something. You know there is a film in production starring Christian Bale as Dick Cheney in a biopic. Any predictions to how he will be portrayed? I'm hoping they portray him in a negative light because he deserves it. He deserves to be portrayed as a fucking terrorist because that's what he is. You know, there are credible reports. And somebody saying I missed a lot. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with these live chats. I'm trying to click through them and then they go away after a while, which I talk too long to answer some of them. So I'm trying, but I apologize if I missed your question. Kyle, look at this section, not the paid one. I don't know what that means. I am looking at this section, but I answer the paid questions at the top. Anyway, Dick Cheney. Yeah, I hope they portray him as a terrorist because that's what he fucking is. You know, there are reports that he was really driving the ship of the Bush administration, that Bush was like an idiot, kind of just, okay, Dick, I'll do whatever you want, which is that's not excusing Bush, but it's saying the lion's share of the blame goes to the evil guy who was like, this is what we must do. Let's attack, a country that didn't attack us. And they tortured. He's outright in favor of torture. He still says the Iraq war was the right thing, even though over 200,000 civilians died. So I hope they portray him in a negative light. But I don't know for sure how they'll portray him. Michael McAllister, $50. Thanks, buddy. You criticize Marxism and communism for being authoritarian. I would argue Marxism is a critique of capitalism's failures. To say communism necessarily equals Stalin is akin to saying Hitler was a socialist. That's not what I'm saying, by the way. Millions have died as a result of capitalism. Okay, so Michael, I'm not making the argument that communism necessarily equals Stalin. I would never make that argument because I don't think it's true. Some people have said to me, oh, why did you make that argument? But it has to be a misinterpretation of what I'm saying because that's not what I'm saying. I don't think communism necessarily equals Stalin. And I also would agree that Marx's critiques of capitalism make sense. But that doesn't mean I agree with his solutions. In fact, I don't agree with his solutions. But I think you need to be careful to not do the no true Scotsman fallacy, because I see this a lot with communism, where people go, "Oh, okay, yeah, right." You can point to the 6, 7, 8 places where they attempted it and it didn't work, and say, "But that's not true communism," so that you can't use that as a strike against communism. I disagree. I don't believe in the no true Scotsman fallacy. I think that you're committing the no true Scotsman fallacy when you do that. When you say, oh, sure, all the places that tried it and it failed, but that doesn't count. No, it does count. It's like when a Muslim terrorist says, I'm doing this because of Islam, my interpretation of Islam. And then people come out and they go, no, that's not true. He doesn't do that because of Islam. No, he did. He fucking told you he did it because of Islam. He said it. He's doing it because of his Salafi interpretation of Islam. So to say, no, you don't mean that, that's nonsense. So, okay, yeah, we tried to set up a communist system and it failed and it was terrible. But, and then people step in and go, no, you didn't try to do it. No, they did. They fucking tried. So, but that's not me saying that communism necessarily equals Stalin, because it doesn't. But I do think you need to not do the no true Scotsman fallacy. And the reason why I'm a social democrat is because I look at the social democracies and they're working right now. I don't need to come up with some sort of a theory about, hey, maybe sometime in the future, if it's tried in the right way, that it'll work and yada. No, it's working right now. Look at Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Finland. It's working right now. Highest standard of living in the world. People are literally the happiest in the world. They report that. Best healthcare systems, most vacation time, high wages. So it's working right fucking now. That doesn't mean that there's no reforms that can be done to make it better. You know, I would be more libertarian on social issues, legalize drugs, yada, yada. But it's working right now, so I don't need a theory. People who argue for a version of communism, they do need to rely on theory because they can't point to a place that's like that and it's working. And to your point that millions have died as a result of capitalism, sure. That's true. So I'm not like defending capitalism to the exclusion of communism. Everybody knows I'm a social democrat, so I believe in a hybrid system. But I would be careful to romanticize Marxism because I don't think there are examples of it working, and I don't agree with it. And I do think it is authoritarian. So I'm a libertarian leftist. I think Marxism is authoritarian left. But anyway, I hope I laid out exactly my beliefs for you there. Cunty Cat, I love that name, asks, check out Streamlabs. You can keep more of the money donated and keep better track of questions, you cuck. Also, would a political science or law degree help in getting into political representation? Depends what you mean by getting into political representation. If you want to run for office, sure, a political science degree would be good. I wouldn't recommend a law degree if you're going to run for office, though. That's overkill. If you want to be a lawyer, get a law degree. But if you want to become a politician, if you get a political science degree, I think that's a good idea. But if you mean getting into political representation as in being on campaigns, then maybe you're just a political science degree. And I'll check out the Streamlabs thing, though I don't know exactly what you mean or how to access that or any of that stuff. Hi, Kyle. What's the temp where you're at? It's about 15 degrees here. Terrible. How do you think climate change will affect U.S. politics in the future? Also, will we get a Kyle and Corn this week? Yes. In fact, I forgot to mention that at the top of this stream. There is a Kyle and Corn that is happening. You'll get it tomorrow, which is tremendous. Believe me, I'm very excited about that. So yeah, it's like 15 degrees here, and climate change will affect U.S. politics in the future. It'll affect politics in every country because the price of food is going to skyrocket. There's going to be more natural disasters, which requires billions of dollars of cleanup. In fact, wasn't there a study that said for the world, it'll be trillions? Rising sea levels, increased drought, famine, wildfires, stronger hurricanes, spike in food prices, wars over water. So it's going to affect absolutely everything. Hi from communist Sweden. What would you do if you were allowed to reform U.S. political system? Electoral college, first past the post, gerrymandering, low population states versus large population states. That's a good question. So the simple answer is abolish the electoral college, do straight up popular vote, and obviously get rid of gerrymandering. So have an independent panel draw the districts in a way that doesn't favor one or the other. And I would abolish the Senate. I think the Senate's bullshit. Even though right now Republicans control the House, so they would get more of their shitty ideas passed at the moment. But it's a principled argument to get rid of the Senate because the Senate is where all legislation goes to die, basically. It's why we don't get any radical change in the right direction. Because when you have a Democratic Senate, for example, I think if there was an overwhelming majority Democratic Senate and a Democratic president who, I think even like Obama, if he was in there, if they managed to get Medicare for all through an overwhelmingly Democratic House, which if we put pressure on them, they would. Remember, we moved from like 50 people to like 120 or something like that. Democratic congressmen, we made them for Medicare for all. If we can chip away and get the House to be on our side, it's easier to move people in the House than in the Senate, number one. They're more responsive to the people. People in the Senate are more responsive to their donors. But I think we could actually get radical change through if we abolish the Senate, if we had gotten rid of the Senate. Please read my post on Twitter. I have something there I'd like you to read in a Google document. Okay, Billy Brightside. I'll do my best if I could find what you're sending me because I get a zillion Twitter messages a day. Paul asks, in 2020, what would your absolute dream POTUS VP pair? Who do you think will support out of the likely candidates? That's a good question. Maybe Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, president, vice president. Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner, president, vice president. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, president, vice president. Yeah, I'd support those for sure. Dream? I don't know. I'd probably have to think about it more, but those three options are good. Bernie, or look, even let's say not Bernie. Tulsi Gabbard, Nina Turner, Elizabeth Warren. These are people who I can vote for. Elizabeth of those three is the worst. Let's be real here. But that's an actual lesser evilism where I could do it. Like that's a lesser evilism where you do the cost benefit analysis and you go, yeah, I'm fine with that lesser evilism. With Hillary was particularly hard. Now I'm in New York, so I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for Jill Stein. But if I was in Ohio or somewhere like that, I would have voted for Hillary. I would have sucked it up and voted for Hillary, but I would have felt shitty about it. I would have felt terrible about it because she's a lesser evil. But with Elizabeth Warren, she's a lesser evil, and it's significantly less evil than Hillary. Like Hillary voted for the Iraq War and the Patriot Act and all these supported outsourcing deals. Elizabeth Warren, while she does have many shitty votes, she's just way better than Hillary, and that's a lesser evil I can get behind. So I hope that answers your question. My dumbass forgot to say I go by WR Hart on Twitter. Okay, Billy. Gotcha. Thanks, man. WR Hart. Gotcha. Dalton Dickey. Great name. Have you ever heard of ContraPoints? If so, what do you think of her content? You, TYT, and Contra are my favorite leftist channels. Also, any other YouTube lefties you want to give a shout out to? I really like that question. I really like that question because I do want to give a shout out to other lefty channels. Let's start with Jimmy Dore. I love Jimmy. I think Jimmy's great. Even when him and I disagree, that's how you know you really like somebody. Even when you disagree with them sometimes, you're like, that's fine. Like, where you're not, it's not like a disagreement where you're like, and you get like angry about it. So I love Jimmy, agree with him a lot. But even when I disagree, I still enjoy him. Humanist Report. Humanist Report is great. David Pakman Show. I'm going to miss out on a lot of people here because I'm just drawing blanks. I'm hungry, so my mind's not functioning properly. Tim Black. You could check out, who many of you guys might like, who you might not know about yet. You could check out the Progressive Voice, who does a lot of covering of progressive media. Does a lot of, he looks at what's going on in the progressive media world, and he will cover progressive media. As progressive media covers, whatever the news is, he'll cover progressive media, which I think is a cool concept. I like how Sam Cedars been shitting on Cernovich recently. Like, Cernovich got him fired, but then there was a big backlash, and Cedar got his job back at MSNBC. But then now every day, Cedar has been going after Cernovich, and I love it because he's trolling the ultimate troll, and it's just great. It just feels great to see that. And I know everybody that, Cedar and Dore have had their problems and all that stuff. And in that back and forth, I tend to agree more ideologically with Jimmy Dore than I do with Sam Cedar. And Cedar has been, kind of dickish to Jimmy. And I don't even think Cedar would necessarily deny that he's been dickish to Jimmy. He thinks he's being dickish for the right reasons, which I don't agree with. But I still like it when Cedar shits on Cernovich all day long. I think that's hilarious and funny. Ben Dixon does a good show. I apologize because I'm definitely going to miss some people here who I want to give a shout out to in left media. But there are a lot of great shows out there, man. I mean, obviously TYT does some good stuff every now and then, though I do have disagreements with him. I tend to disagree with TYT and David Pakman on the Russia stuff. But I think I did some good shout outs there. I'm probably missing some people, and I apologize if I missed you, but there are some great left outlets. And ContraPoints, no, I haven't heard of, but I'll check out ContraPoints. I will do that. Okay, I think, I got all the ones that I saw. I got all the ones that I saw. Anyway, so let me wrap up. While you guys can cut off the super chats now, I'm going to go to, I just got a few more things I wanted to talk about. New Year's resolution, or actually just one more thing I wanted to talk about. New Year's resolution. So started that obviously the other day, and going strong. I like the idea of like a clean line where, okay, here, now you got to be on your shit. Draw this line in the sand, and that's it. Now you're on your shit. I could do it. I think it's hard to do it just willy-nilly on a random day. Like, yeah, I'm gonna start doing a good diet and exercise and stuff, and just start on a random Thursday. No, it's got to be a line. Okay, January 1st, 2018. So now all of 2018, and you just keep going. You allow yourself a cheat meal or a cheat day every now and then. I'm going to do that on Fridays. But, I'm optimistic this time. Because when I get on a roll, then I'm very good and I could stick to it. But I have to be rigid in sticking to it because I fall right down that slippery slope. So if I slip up and have the wrong meal or whatever, or skip a workout, then it's just slippery slope and I'm gone, and I miss another one, and then I miss another workout, and then I'm eating fucking McDonald's, and then it's so that could be terrible. But I'm going strong at the moment. It's only been, what, 2 days? It's funny to talk about it in such a sober, serious way, but, committing to the gym, committing to the workouts, eating a lot cleaner. I think that's the trick, is to just eat cleaner. You don't have to go super rigid. Like, I'm going to eat a Mediterranean diet and only that's it. Only Mediterranean. No, you just have to, it's almost like the diet should be more, in my mind, for me at least, just more eliminating of stuff. You know what I mean? Than sticking by an exact meal plan. So for me, for example, I used to never drink soda at all. You guys know, hashtag big seltzer sellout. And actually, meanwhile, boom shakalaka. But I was drinking soda for a while there, so now I'm back to no soda, only water and seltzer, and I drink this V8 green juice, which is supposed to be pretty healthy, even though it's processed or whatever. So elimination of that, eliminating the carby, like pizza and all that, gone. Can't be super carby, especially not, like white bread kind of stuff. So that's eliminated. And so it's just more vegetables and fruits and chicken. And, I'm curious to see what happens, because the last time I was super rigid with my diet and my exercise, the results came quick. But back then I was doing 0 carbs. I'm not doing 0 carbs now. I'm just cutting out the most like carby foods. But I shed the weight quick when I do a keto diet. This isn't a keto. This is like maybe a semi-keto diet and just clean. It's obviously not fully keto if I said fruits. But yeah, I'm optimistic. And I don't know how many of you guys did your New Year's resolutions, but let's not fucking give up on this, man. Let's keep it going. Because then these things pay dividends. That's what nobody talks about, is that, sure, the first fucking 1 week, 2 weeks, you might be miserable and, oh my God, you're in fucking carb withdrawal or whatever the case is. But once you get over that hump, the workout hump and the diet hump, then you start to go, fuck yeah. And you start to feel like if you miss a workout or something, you're like, whoa, this is fucked up. Why did I just miss this? This ain't right. So that's what you want to get to, the point where the norm is to be on your shit and to be eating right, and working out, sticking to your schedule. And, I have to be rigid with it. Some of you guys are probably better with dealing with like you can miss a workout and it won't be the end of the world. But once I'm on my shit, I can't. So I'll keep everybody updated on it, probably on Kyle and Corin, as the weeks go by, and let you know if/when I slip. And we got to try to fucking lift each other up here. Because, hey man, I'm turning 30 in January. And that's still young, of course, but you do start going, oh shit. Now, if I don't eat right, you don't get away with it anymore. Now it's like, okay, I see it. It's on my fucking spare tire. I got like a belly, and that's gross. There's nothing uglier than the skinny fat, where like your legs are skinny, your arms are skinny, but you got a fucking gut. Like you're semi-pregnant as a dude. It's like, ugh, what the fuck? So you can't get away with it anymore. And there's health reasons, man. Like, there's a history of heart problems and cancer in my family. And you could say, sure, but who doesn't have that? And that's true. A lot of people do. Heart disease is like the #1 killer of Americans. But, so you've got to be cognizant of that. And you got to try to eat right so you don't let that happen. I mean, there are people who die super young. Look what happened to Erica Gardner. Some would argue it's because of the stress of everything that happened in her life. And that there's probably a good amount of truth to that. But you can literally die of a heart attack. And she was 27, so it's just not unheard of. So you just gotta be aware of your mortality and just try to extend your time on this earth. And that may sound morbid, but hey, if you're in shape when you're older and you feel like you're doing the right things and staying healthy, well, then you don't even worry about mortality as much. Like, I feel like if I was lazy as fuck and kept eating like shit and didn't work out, I would start worrying about like, oh shit, I could have like a heart attack any minute now. You know what I mean? But when you're eating right and working out and all that stuff, then it's like that becomes more of a thought on the back burner. Like, okay, whatever. I'm all right. I'm doing all right. I'm eating decent. I'm working out. So now there's more than, it used to just be vain reasons to work out when you're fucking 19 or 20. Like, yeah, I'm going to get fucking big upper body and stuff. But, now since I'm turning 30, it's like semi-vain reasons, but then also just health. Health. It's probably mostly health, And then who doesn't, once you're in the flow of it, who doesn't love that post-workout feeling where you're like, oh shit, that was great. Like, I feel like I released a lot of energy in a way that has almost like given your body a natural form of Xanax or something like that. You know what I mean? So let's do that. Let's increase our natural Xanax. Increase our natural Xanax or Valium or whatever. I'm over here spitting over the mic and shit. Don't make a joke, you dirty motherfuckers. So yeah, let's do that. And we could boost each other up with this kind of stuff, man. And it's difficult for me because I've always had I'm of two minds. You guys know this because I mentioned this, I think, on the last live stream, or it might have been a Kyle and Corin. Part of me loves like the demotivational kind of people, Like, I was a big fan of, remember the show House? Brilliant doctor and all that, but he's like lazy as fuck and super nihilistic. Like, part of me loves that. Like, the fuck it all, doesn't matter. I'm just going to do whatever I want because that's the way it should be. And so part of me loves the fuck society and fuck your rules. I don't care about working out and eating right. But then the other part of me likes the motivational kind of people like Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is one of my fucking heroes. Tiger Woods, I mean, sure, he was enjoying the drugs too. But in his prime, when he's on his shit, it's workouts probably every day, but never missing a workout, always eating right, and then going out there and winning, So when part of you loves the demotivational people and the other part of you loves the super motivational people, you're like in a permanent pickle because, some days you wake up and you're like, today I'm demotivational. I don't want to do shit. But then you feel shitty about that later on. And then there are other days where you wake up and you're like, that's it. Now I'm on my shit and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take care of all this stuff I got to take care of. And yeah, let's go fucking tackle this day. But it's tough because if you're like me and you kind of like both extremes, well, then you find yourself oftentimes feeling demotivational and then other times feeling motivational. And it's just a constant struggle inside. There's like a battle inside your own mind. So I'm fighting that battle on a daily basis. But now that we had the clean line of January 1st, 2018, and I'm turning 30 on January 31st, so the end of this month, last day of this month, I turn 30. It's like, okay, that's it. No more fucking around. Like, at least with certain things, you can't allow yourself to be demotivational. You got to be serious about this stuff. You got to be real about this stuff. You got to eat right. You got to work out and all that. So anyway, I think that's all I got for you. I don't see any more super chats. And by the way, again, guys, I fucking apologize if I missed anything. And I'm sure I did. I'm positive I did, but it was not on purpose. It's never on purpose. And again, my apologies if that's the case. There is a Kyle and Corin tomorrow. So that's pretty exciting. I know I'm excited for it. There hasn't been a Kyle and Corin in a while. But yeah, that's that. This was fun. These secular talking smack live streams really are interesting and new. I like it. We just come here and talk shit. I answer some questions. So anyway, love y'all. And of course, I will talk to you soon. And everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.